Welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour 25th Anniversary, live from Minneapolis, USA. My name's Riley, joined by Paul, and round number 2 is upon us. As we said, one of the hardest hitting heavyweights in the history of Magic, Kai Budde. Very much the old versus the new. Quinn Kiefer, the young 13-year-old. These two teams coming from opposite ends of the spectrum. It is time to head down to the feature match area right now to get underway with round number 2 of Pro Tour 25th Anniversary.
Oh, it's Lazy Helix! Oh my God!
Easy game!
He didn't block and that was it!
What have you drawn? What is it? What is it? What is it?
Huey Jensen is your world champion!
Hello, my friends, and welcome to this very special Pro Tour 25th Anniversary. Round number 2 is upon us. Riley Knight in the booth with Paul Cheon, and on your screens, we have some of the most hallowed and storied players in the history of Magic. Kai Budde, the German juggernaut, Paul. This guy, one of the most famous players in Magic. He's been around for a long time. He's won it all.
Absolutely. He was one of the players that I looked up to. When I first started playing competitive Magic, the first time I heard about competitive Magic was through an old magazine. It was called Sideboard Magazine. And through the magazine, it basically just showed, was talking about Kai's dominance. And then I started, just looking up coverage. That's how I discovered coverage, looking online. And he just won every time he top 8 at a Pro Tour, he just won.
He just won it.
He was a closer.
10 Pro Tour top 8s, 7 wins.
That is an unreal conversion rate.
Unbelievable.
Truly just one of the greatest. When you talk about some of the greatest Magic players of all time, it's basically Kai Finkel, right? Kai or Finkel. That's always a conversation.
Well, I tell you what, his opponent's got his work cut out from Marcos Paulo de Jesus Freitas. There you can see him, the Brazilian, teaming with Willy Edel and Quinn Kiefer. Now, the resume of de Jesus Freitas also very impressive indeed. He's got 3 GP top 8s, including a win. He's been at quite a few Pro Tours here, 84 Pro points in his career. So, no slouch. But I tell you what, as we say, he's got his work cut out from against the German juggernaut. Interesting story to emerge from the team of de Jesus Freitas, Edel and Kiefer, which we'll get to. But right now, look at this matchup.
A mirror.
The Eldrazi Stompy mirror match in Legacy, Paul.
Ooh, there's a Wasteland too from Kai. The most important things for kind of these Eldrazi decks to go off are just making sure you have these lands that produce 2 mana, that give you the ability to play things for cheaper. You have cards like Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, Eldrazi Temple, and Eye of Ugin. That's a lot of redundancy. But, the key to the matchup is just making sure you mulligan and making sure you have 1 to 2 copies of these cards. So, that Wasteland was big. And yeah, you often don't see a mirror in Legacy, right? You have just so many powerful options to choose from. Sometimes it's pretty rare to see that. And also just like Eldrazi Stompy, this is not something that you would expect.
It's not the decks that we were sort of really pinging on our radar as we headed into this Pro Tour. It's not a blue deck, which immediately is an entire subcategory of Legacy decks here, and certainly the mirror match in round number 2, not where I expected for us to be.
Oh,
but we have seen the power of Eldrazi Temple and Eye of Ugin in Modern. It was too powerful for the format. It completely warped the Modern format around it. In Legacy, however, there are some stopgaps, and it's a little bit fairer.
Yeah, Legacy is a little more powerful, so it can handle decks being able to do stuff like this. And it's funny, just, kind of the way this Game 1 matchup works, it really just comes down to who plays the big creatures. None of these disruptive cards actually do anything. Chalice of the Void, Thorn of Amethyst, all of these cards are going to be sideboarded out. And I think Kai might actually have the slight edge, at least in Game 1s, because Kai isn't playing that Thorn of Amethyst, which basically shuts down nothing.
This is the thing, right? We talk about this Eldrazi Stompy deck as it's an aggro deck, right? It hits hard, it hits early. But the extra dimension to this is that it is a prison deck. It plays Thorn of Amethyst, it plays Chalice of the Void. It's very good at preying on the blue decks of the format. We saw Gary Campbell, the Scottish superstar, win GP Birmingham with his red prison deck, which was cast in a similar mold to this Eldrazi list.
Right. This is this deck, it does prey on a lot of different decks. Storm, for example. This deck is a nightmare for Storm because it plays 4 copies of Chalice of the Void main along with Thorn of Amethyst. And just any one of those cards resolving is very, very difficult to beat. And then it's got additional disruption in Thought-Knots here, which is excellent.
So really good against those cantrip-heavy blue decks as well. Something like Chalice of the Void completely shuts down Delver decks, Makes it very difficult for them to get it done. And then they just kind of win with whatever, right? All the Eldrazi usual suspects are there. Matter Reshaper, Reality Smasher, Thought Not Seer. And then things like Endless One and Eldrazi Mimic, which are so fantastic with Eye of Ugin.
And Marcos really just needs a big creature because he's got a ton of mana already. He's got that Eye of Ugin. He's got multiple Eldrazi temples with the Cavern of Souls. He really needs to find a big creature. And because he played nothing last turn, that gives away that he has nothing big in his hand. But it looks like he drew a Reality Smasher off the top.
A very nice one here. 5/5 Trample. Haste getting busy. And we'll see what Kai has to say about this. Budde has had a quieter time on the professional scene in recent years.
Right, yeah. He really doesn't go to all of the Pro Tours anymore. He's in the Hall of Fame, but he currently, lives in the Caribbean, works out of Curacao. So, finding flights, a lot of these trips are just like big, long trips that he has to make.
I think he prefers to sit at home and complain about the Pro Tours on Twitter rather than actually attend.
Yeah, well, and but this is the event. This is one of the marquee events, right? This is celebrating the history of Magic. There's a huge prize pool for this. We're giving out $850,000. Yeah. In total for the team event. So, that might have been enough to motivate Kai to actually come out here and battle.
And of course, I mean, as one of the legendary figures of the game, his presence at such a historic event is something that certainly is very, very appropriate. I know that people around the world will be pulling hard for this guy after, witnesses like you to his early career or people like me who have come to the game later and have heard of this mythic figure. Right. And here he is getting it done, Pro Tour 25th anniversary.
Not really the card that Marcos wants here. He found another Thorn of Amethyst, but he did go for the block here because, again, he's looking for a big threat. So he's okay preventing some damage with the Matter Reshaper and trying to find, the additional copies of Reality Smasher, an Endbringer, or even an Endless One here to block.
So, yes, a bit of a blank ski here for De Jesus Freitas. But hey, it's not the only one, and that card will pay dividends throughout the weekend. You know, right now it does look like a bit of a clunker, but it's it's very, very good.
It is basically a blink in the Eldrazi Stompy Mirror, but I don't think he was necessarily bringing this deck to expect playing a bunch of Eldrazi Stompy Mirrors either. So
De Jesus Freitas now having a think about what he's up to. You can see the Serum Powder in hand, and if you look very carefully, just above the deck of De Jesus Freitas, you'll see a pile of cards there, Paul, because Serum Powder was in De Jesus Freitas' opening hand.
Right. So Serum Powder, also just the way, if you're expecting a lot of kind of degenerate combo-style decks, Serum Powder does allow you to get that free mulligan to try to find cards like Chalice and Thorn of Amethyst, because you do need, those cards are highly effective against those linear decks, but you do need to draw them. And Serum Powder just gives you that additional way to kind of mulligan into those cards.
Super weird card. Super weird card. It's the only thing it does in an actual game of Magic is it's a bad Power Stone shard, essentially. It's a three-drop mana rock. But the fact that it does give you a quote-unquote free mulligan, it's not quite a mulligan. Essentially, you exile your hand and then draw that many cards again. It's a pre-game action. It was something that took place while the players were getting ready. And De Jesus Freitas was digging for what he thought he would need in this matchup.
Yeah, this looks a bit rough. I don't know if Marcos actually has enough cards to sideboard out in this matchup. They're just, Serum Powder probably staying in. I don't know. But Serum Powder isn't great. Thorn of Amethyst isn't great, and neither is Chalice of the Void.
The thing is, there's just nothing in his board that he can bring in to really turn the screws on Budde, where Budde has copies of Khan, Scion of Urza. I mean, this is a fantastic option for him post-board.
Yeah.
So really problematic stuff here for De Jesus Freitas. And certainly under a lot of pressure as it is on this board. We've got two Endless Ones, not living up to their names, well and truly, end full, I would say, end full ones.
So now he's going to take 6 here and go to 4. There's a 2/2 Walking Ballista on the battlefield as well. So Marcos is going to need a huge draw.
Nope. Doesn't find it. Nope. He's scooped all of his cards up so hard, some of them have fallen onto the ground there. And Kai Budde picks up a handy Game 1 win to put his team on the scoreboard. And that is that for Game number 1. Of course, we've still got plenty of Magic to bring you. Not only Legacy, Modern and Standard as well. All the decks that you're going to want to see. But we've got to go to a break right now. Stick with us, my friends. On the other side of this, more Magic coming your way from Minneapolis. Welcome back to the feature match area here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. In the booth, it's me, Riley Knight, joining me, my friend and colleague from Wizards R&D. It is Paul Cheon. We do have Tim Willoughby standing by in the feature match area to bring us up to speed with what we've missed on the other tables. Tim Willoughby, what has been going on, my friend?
Well, the first game in the Modern is still in play. I think we're going to get a chance to see a little bit of that in moments. But I wanted to give you a bit of update on the Standard on the back table. We had Luca Casadei against Quinn Kiefer. Game one, it all went Casadei's way. He's on Paradoxical Outcome against the red deck on Kiefer's side of things. And a few new tools for the Paradoxical Outcome deck. Khan has been making some constructs, which is obviously a nice beatdown plan for the Outcome deck. But it's Psy Master Thopterist that really changed things around. All of a sudden, a lot of extra artifacts coming into play, meaning that those constructs able to just attack. It wasn't a combo win, but it was a pretty decisive win, game one for Luca Casadei.
Thanks, Tim. We're going to move over and have a look at what's going on the Modern table right now. However, it is Willie Adel, the Brazilian Hall of Famer, playing off against Jan Moritz Merkel here.
This is a 10-year delayed revenge game here, as Jan Moritz Merkel defeated Willy Edel in the finals of Pro Tour Kobe.
Yeah, so a real blast from the past here.
And this is a Liliana emblem, I believe. That's on the battlefield.
Yes, it is Liliana the Last Hope, so she's going to generate a bunch of zombies essentially every turn. So Merkel has certainly got a clock on Adel. Adel really hasn't been able to find his way into this game. It's a difficult thing to do, playing a creature-based deck against the infinite interaction of Mardu Pyromancer. It's just it's all removal. And look at this. You're seeing exactly what we're saying here, Paul.
And yeah, we really needed to kind of get out the gates quickly, but I mean, we're facing down a Liliana emblem here, and yeah, this one is all but locked up at this point.
Mardu Pyromancer is such an incredibly powerful deck. It's so resilient. It's so difficult to really to go against. It plays the fairest magic in Modern. And it's consistent with Faithless Looting. It's explosive with things like Bedlam Reveler, and it can just grind them out with Lingering Souls. And everything else apart from that is just removal spells.
It is fantastic against creature decks because you're playing a pile of removal, and just lots of great ways to put blockers in the battlefield with cards like the Lingering Souls. And then after you cast all your cheap, efficient removal, you can just reload with the Bedlam Revelers.
Yep, and it doesn't really matter how you win. You've got the Reveler as a nice body to get across. You've got Young Pyromancer to flood the board with tokens, Lingering Souls, what have you. Huge fan of this Mardu Pyromancer deck. Unsurprised to see it beat 5-color humans in game number 1. A very tough matchup for Willie Adel, and going down swinging, but all the same going down.
Right. And you know what? The humans deck actually got a new interesting addition from M19.
This.
So, you know, oftentimes when you see the humans deck, there's always like 1 or 2 flex slots, but it looks like they've actually cut a few more cards for 4 copies of Militia Bugler as a way to grind out a lot of these other decks.
Little 3-mana 2/3 wanting to toot and a bug here and get some extra creatures off the top. And you know, we've seen this in the past. Goblin Ringleader used to be able to, maybe a little bit more powerful than the old Bugler here, but giving yourself a little bit of selection in a deck like this is quite incredible, because all of the cards in the 5-color humans list, despite the fact they're creatures, many of them have spell-like properties.
Right. The only miss in the deck, I suppose, is the Mantis Rider.
Yeah.
But the Mantis Rider is just so powerful on rate that you're just going to put it in your deck. But again, finding additional copies of Thalia's Lieutenant or even Phantasmal Image to just kind of get that card advantage engine going, you know, it looks like Willie opted to go for the full 4 copies of the Bugler here.
Now, here's a story for the ages as we jump across to table C here for Standard. We're looking at Luca Casadei playing off against Quinn Kiefer. Now, Quinn Kiefer, the youngest scion of the Kiefer clan here. His brother Jack is also in attendance. And this story is really quite a special one, Paul. I got the chance to catch up with Jennifer Kiefer, the Kiefer boys' mum, yesterday, and she was telling me how Willie Adel reached out to the Kiefer family to see if Quinn was available for this Pro Tour. Quinn was headhunted by a Hall of Famer.
That is amazing.
It's incredible. Now, Willie Adel, well known for his enormous devotion to the growth of the game of Magic at a grassroots level. This man, I don't know if you've had the chance to work with him. I worked with him at GP Sao Paulo. He is one of the best humans I have met. And it didn't surprise me at all to learn that he was like, there's a 13-year-old kid playing at this Pro Tour, and I want him in my corner, and I want to be in his corner as well.
Yeah, supporting the kind of the future of Magic, right?
This is the future of Magic,
right.
you know. And I'm going to read something now from the little media guide. Let's part the kimono a little bit for the viewers at home here. We get a little media guide that racks up all the stats, the facts and figures for all the players. And you know, reading this, I can tell you that at the age of 13, Quinn Kiefer has 13 pro points, so he's on a pretty good rate there. But like this, Pro Tour debut, Paul. It says here, this is Quinn's first of many Pro Tours. That's how established the knowledge is that the Kiefer family are a force to be reckoned with in the future of Magic.
Wait, and think about it too. Just like this is the Pro Tour with the highest stakes. Right? This is the most prize money ever given out at an event that we've held. And Willie Edel reached out for, you know, and had a 13-year-old kid basically join his team.
Because he wants to be on the ground floor.
I think you're great,
Yeah.
and I think you're good enough. Let's have you on our team,
Yeah.
and let's play.
And
let's try to win.
the symbiosis of this relationship is staggering. We've got one of the all-time greats, a Hall of Famer, Willy Adel, mentoring and helping to grow, you know, this young man that you see on your screen here. And in return, Quinn Kiefer, as an up-and-coming, you know, one of these players that is going to be on the radar of professional Magic in the coming decades, he's getting the best start possible with the mentorship of someone like Adel.
Right. And you know what? This is really the matchup that I wanted to see
Oh,
the
yeah.
most
Yeah,
coming in.
let's get it done,
I know
yeah.
we have Kai here, one of the greatest of all time, but I really wanted to see this mono blue Aetherflux Reservoir deck in action. You know, it really kind of came together with the addition of Psy, Master Thopters from M19.
Now, we were talking about this card earlier in the weekend, Paul, and you were talking about how, you know, it was one of those cards that in development, when it had a couple of the knobs twisted to kind of juice it up a little bit. And, I mean, you've done the job. It's seeing play at the highest level.
Yeah. I mean, there were lots of iterations on this, and, you know, we finally got to a point where, like, you know what? This seems to be in a really good spot. Really excited to see what people can do with this. And, yeah, it's actually being played at the biggest Pro Tour ever.
It is indeed in the hands of Luca Casadei here. We see Kiefer getting in now for some extra damage with this Bomat Curio. But let's talk about the Reservoir combo deck. It's a weird one. It is a weird deck. It is playing all of these cheap artifacts, amongst them Ornithopter, as you can see there. And essentially what it's attempting to do is chain together as many spells as possible, artifacts usually, with an Aetherflux Reservoir on the battlefield. Gains a bunch of life, gets above 50, one-shots the opponent. The difference, the difference in this deck now, post M19, is that it can pivot and it can play to the board, not only with Glint Ness Crane, but also with Psy. It turns all of these, you know, the Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot, it turns the Mox Amber, the Prophetic Prism into 1/1 Thopters, which are meaningful creatures, when there's not a Goblin Rabbitmaster, that can win a game outside of the Reservoir combo.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Psy. It basically does kind of everything that you want, right? It acts as a great blocker. It's got a good body. In the early game, you can pump out a bunch of tokens. And even if you get Goblin Chain Whirler, you can still just play more artifacts afterwards and still continue to make the Thopters. So it acts, and then in the late game, it just acts as a win condition. And if you also need more gas, well, guess what? You can sack the artifacts to draw a card as well.
Does it all.
So it
Slices and
basically does everything that you want from this deck.
Attacks, protects, does it all. Does it all.
Yeah.
For the low price of 3 mana and as a 1/4 as well, a very resilient set of stats as well in the current standard format. However, Quinn Kiefer firing on all cylinders, keeping the board nice and clear. That's the way that he wants to do it. And this Bomat Courier slowly but surely filling up its mailbag. Now, a great position for Kiefer to be in. He doesn't mind deploying removal aggressively when he has this Courier online because he can reload in a few short turns.
Right, he can, but at the same time, he doesn't really have a whole lot of pressure. This Bomat Courier is going to give Kiefer a bunch of cards, but he's only getting in for 1 damage a turn. And look, Casadei just runs out an Ornithopter. Guess what? Get to prevent that 1 damage from that Bomat Courier.
That is true. Inspiring Statuary, another important piece of the puzzle here for Casadei. Inspiring Statuary, essentially a mana rock for non-artifact spells that also juices up other non-artifact spells with artifacts that you have on the battlefield. This Ornithopter can effectively tap for 1 mana when playing something, you know, any one of these blue cards.
Oh, and I like this big heads-up play from Casadei. He chooses not to block with the Ornithopter so as not to get wrecked by a Goblin Chain Whirler, which Kiefer is holding in hand.
Yeah.
It is more valuable to have that Ornithopter in play. And there's also the chance that that Quinn chooses not to attack with the Bomat Courier because the Ornithopter's on the board. So he's just running out the Ornithopter just in case.
So there is the Chain Whirler. Refused full value from Casadei. Smart stuff from him. And we'll see what he can do now with this Inspiring Statuary.
Right.
One of the important things to note with Inspiring Statuary, it says non-artifact spell, so usually you still have to tap some coloured mana for it. But not so, Mr. Secretary, when it comes to Casadei's deck with Khan, Sign of Urza. He can tap 0 lands and cast this guy.
Right. And now we have a Sorcerer Spyglass entering the battlefield. This is actually, you would think that this is a strange card to bring in against an aggressive deck, but there are a lot of really good targets here. There's a lot of planeswalkers that the red-black aggro can have after sideboard. Some decks play cards like a Karn, Sign of Urza, in their sideboard. It also stops Hazoret activations, and it also stops Chandra, Torch of Defiance. And you can even name Heart of Kirin.
And that is a real rough new grip here for Quinn Kiefer. We saw him activate the Bomat Courier in response to the Spyglass because, of course, the Spyglass could name the Courier. But unfortunately for young Kiefer, he has drawn 3 lands and a Chandra.
So the Spyglass is definitely going to be naming the Chandra, Torch of Defiance here.
And we see Casadei confirm that decision just there. So Kiefer holding effectively 3 or 4 blank cards even now. He doesn't need the extra lands. He's got nothing to dump them into.
Right.
So a little bit of trouble here.
Yeah, and Casadei's hand is very nice too. He's got a card here, which is going to come out and be a... Is he making a... I mean, I would guess that given that what he knows in Kiefer's hand, he's going to just make a construct here.
Yep.
And
5/5
let's take a look here. 5/5 construct.
5/5 construct.
Wow.
And this is the thing that I was talking about here, Paul. The fact that Khan, as a non-artifact colorless threat, can be played off 4 artifacts, including an Inspiring Statuary.
All right,
it's
so
an
Quinn
insane
drew
bump
an
map.
amazing card here. He drew an on-crop Crasher here, which actually allows him to attack through the construct and deal with the Karn that's on the battlefield.
That is a very timely rip here for Kiefer. Of course, the perfect card to push through that damage. That Khan was threatening to take over the game in no short order. Still has to deal with the 5/5, but at least for now, that Khan is gone.
Yeah, so he at least gets to deal with the Karn on the board. There's still that 5/5 construct that's going to kind of stymie Quinn's offenses here because Chain Roller can't attack through it. But, you know, he gets to get in for damage. He needed a draw there because if he didn't find one, Casadei could have just made another construct, and then they could just be racing, and Casadei would have been firmly ahead.
That was going to be really bad news there for Kiefer, but he keeps his snoot above water here. Now, Lucas Casadei, he's not going to be happy with that. He's thinking, that was the play that I made to put myself ahead, right? And Kiefer is like, not so fast, my friend. Not so fast.
At the same time, we do know that Quinn is holding a handful of a bunch of lands, and Casadei has a lot of great top decks for his deck. And he's got that 5/5 construct that he could choose to use on defense. It looks like he's actually trying to race here because the on-crop Crasher has been exerted.
Kiefer not able to unload a huge amount of damage in the coming turns. Casadei, look at this. Prophetic Prism and Ornithopter. The biggest Pro Tour ever played.
Yeah.
And Casadei is happy to be sitting behind them.
Oh, another Crasher off the top.
Oh my goodness, look at this.
Wow, okay. So now this is a 2-turn clock. Casadei, if Casadei chooses not to block, Quinn doesn't need to exert here, as the only things that Casadei can block with are those Ornithopters. So now does he want to block with one of the Thopters maybe?
It's a tough
Stay at
position.
9 life?
This is a tough position for him because he's taking a real beating. He's going to have his life total halved if he doesn't block. And then Kiefer has 2 untapped crop crashes next turn.
Right. And so he did choose to
He's just
throw away
chucking them away.
both of them, but this does also shrink the construct that's on the battlefield down to a 4/4. Now 4/4 is still a good size relative to the other creatures on the battlefield, but
I mean,
Quinn now has access to two on-crop.
It's just never
Crasher
blocking.
Exert.
The 4/4 is never blocking, Paul.
Yeah, so Casadei needs a good draw here. So some very timely on-crop Crashers from Quinn here.
I mean, I guess the good thing about the Bomat Courier is it cleared away the garbage, so he could rip the freshies off the top because that is. And look at the expression on Casadei. He can't believe it.
He's like, where did it all go wrong?
Where did this all go wrong? I played
Yeah.
the Khan. I was so far ahead. And look at Adel, the mastermind,
Right.
above the Scion's shoulder. He's like, yes, good. Young one, you have pleased me.
Yeah.
So Quinn Kiefer right back in it here, I would say.
Right. Now Casadei isn't just dead right here. He does have an Aether Meltdown in hand.
And he's hustling and bustling. He's going to get busy. Looks like an
He's
attack's on the
attacking.
card.
This is really interesting. I think I would lean towards forcing Quinn to go for an exert on the on-crop Crasher. Like, that's what he gets to do by choosing to keep the construct back. And you're not really in a situation where racing is profitable here. So I think I would look to keep the construct back, force Quinn to use an exert, then play the Aether Meltdown on the Goblin Chain Whirler, and only take 6. But then on the following turn, only one of the on-card crashers will be able to untap.
But still, actually the perfect cards off the top here for Kiefer. Let's see if he can make it 3 from 3 with timely draw steps. Didn't get a good look at the card that he found off the top. A duress. All right. Let's see what you're working with, Mr. Casadei, he says.
So the Meltdown surely gets cast here on the Chain Whirler, would be my guess.
Yes, indeed. There it is. Ether Meltdown. A weird kind of blue Doomblade.
Right.
That's not even that's not even close to being a fair.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very effective card in the current metagame. It's a nice way to shut down Heart of Kirin. One of the big issues with the mono blue deck is, it's got a bunch of ways to block with cards like Sai, but Steel Leaf Champion is a really hard card to deal with because the text is actually relevant there. Creatures with power 2 or less can't block Steel Leaf Champion, and an army of Thopters won't be able to stop it.
So turning it into a little 1/4 there,
right,
is gonna help. But all the same, here's a Chandra Torch of Defiance. Now it's still named with the Sorcerer's Spyglass, but I guess if Kiefer rips something like an Abrade, he's going to be in great shape here. I think he'd love an Abrade.
Casadei still needs a big draw here. Another Karn would be great here. Perhaps even a Glintnest Crane to chain into some other artifacts. Okay, we got a spell here.
So, the next play is Sidemaster Thopterist. All right, okay.
No, that is great. That's just another blocker. Again, the body, very relevant here. 4 toughness is kind of one of the magic numbers against the red deck because a lot of the removal spells that it plays, it's got Lightning Strike, it's got a Braid, and Sai gets to survive that. Of course, it's still vulnerable to cards like Glorybringer and Chandra, but at least you get to shut off half the removal effects in the burn deck, or in the mono red deck.
So let's see now what Kiefer's next move is. Channeling his inner Johnny Finker. Look at him go, this young superstar. Adel doesn't even need to intervene here. I've been so impressed by the conduct and the demeanor of these young gentlemen.
And that's another Chandra, and I think Quinn just has... He could have opted to attack with the on-crop Crasher. Oh, no, never mind. The Goblin Chain Whirler's been shut down, so he actually just has blocks. So he actually doesn't have a good attack here. And he drew a second copy of Chandra, so... All right.
So both players being treated very kindly by the tops of their libraries here. Right. Casadei might be looking to draw some cards at some point with that Sai as well.
Nope, this is a 4-drop.
Okay, Aetherflux Reservoir, here we go. So that's going to not only generate a Thopter token here thanks to Sai, it's also going to start to generate some life for Casadei if he can start to spin spells together here.
It's really crucial that Kiefer draw something in the next couple of turns as Casadei can slowly start running away with this game. He's going to be able to use that Aetherflux Reservoir as a life gain source. If he feels like he needs to draw a few more cards, he can use the Sai to throw away cards like the Prophetic Prism that's on the battlefield to try to chain together a few more spells. And so now Casadei is very close to being able to turn this game around.
And now we see Adel leaning forward to perhaps lend his expertise here.
Right.
Because this is a tough spot for the young master here. Kiefer has those uncrop crashes got him back into it. He has failed to convert so far. Scrap Heap Scrounger off the top, a Chandra in hand in addition for Kiefer here. Casadei,
so Quinn Kiefer now can attack with both of the on-crop crashers, make it so that the Construct and Sai can't block, which will then force a chump block from the Thopter, and he will also be able to get in for 3 points of damage. Now, that'll put Casadei down to 3, and if he does have something like, if he draws an Unlicensed Disintegration, he might be able to get in for lethal if Casadei doesn't draw an artifact.
So double exert, we do see the exact play that you mentioned there, Paul, as the 1/1 jumps under this uncrop crasher shaped bus, and Casadei down to 3. He does need to find something here because the board continues to be flooded by Kiefer. Although those uncrop crashes both being exerted means that he's got a little bit of time. Island off the top. Wow.
He does have time. So now it might be a reasonable thing here to choose to use Sai's ability here, sack a Prophetic Prism, and maybe even the Statuary here to draw a card.
I think we're going to see exactly this take place here, Paul. Nope, has a think about it.
As the Sai actually still holds the Scrap Heap Scrounger at bay, because if he chooses to sacrifice 2 artifacts, the Construct will become a 3/3. But again, he has that Sai to block. And right now, he is in that situation where he really needs to kind of get the engine going. He might want to sack those artifacts to draw a card.
But the thing is, if he draws any artifact spell, it will then boost the Construct by 2.
Right, and he'll gain a life this turn.
And he gains a life. So yeah, I think definitely you want to go digging here, and we're going to see Casadei do this.
Here we go.
Sacrificing 2 artifacts. Look at that, tapping his Reliquary Tower. Slight misprint on the card I noticed this time around, Paul.
Oh, and that's another Aetherflux Reservoir, I believe.
So now gaining 2 life per spell and also going to dump 2 more artifacts onto the board. That'd be a very good rip for him here.
Oh, no. That was a paradox. Wait, was that a paradoxical outcome or was that a... Okay. So
Looks like it was a paradoxical
Oh, it was a
outcome.
paradoxical outcome. Okay.
They do look very similar, the art.
Right. They both have that big blue glowy thing
Yeah,
in the
they've
middle.
got, and there's sort of an ovular kind of
Right.
glow in the middle there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Casadei having a good old think about it. Looks like he's going to just ship here.
Yeah, I think part of it is he's thinking, do I need to cast this now to gain the life so I don't just lose on License Disintegration? But I think you just have to kind of take the chance here.
So let's see what Kiefer's found here. He does have a Chandra in hand, which does stone cold nothing. There is one on the board that already has been hit by the Sorcerer's Spyglass. In comes the attack.
So I can see potentially here a block with the Thopter and a paradoxical outcome. He could also just choose to block with the Sai. If Kiefer still just plays a Goblin Chain World to follow it up, Casadei can choose to cast the paradoxical outcome to return a bunch of permanents to his hand.
Scrap Heap Scrounge of the play now for Kiefer. Just testing the waters with that
All right,
attack.
here we go.
3-2. So, paradoxical outcome, not a card that we see played a lot. It does get played in Vintage a fair bit, actually, with all those Moxen flying about. But right now, Casadei is going to pick up a bunch of cards, or pick up a bunch of non-land, non-token permanents, and he's going to draw.
So he's
A
using
bunch
it
of
to draw 2 cards.
That was picking up the chunk of his library to draw 2
Nice
cards
little
there.
inspiration there. Draw 2, gain 1.
Yeah, so he's got a nice full grip now.
Right, but now he has the ability to gain a good amount of life, and he drew a lot of
Yeah.
meaningful cards here. There's a Karn in his hand. He's got a lot of great spells here.
This is good stuff for Casadei, as we see. We're going to see Sai come down and then a bunch of other cards that are going to not only flood the board with 1/1s, but also buffer his life total quite significantly.
But keep in mind, this is really, really important that Casadei is able to flood the board here because there are 2 on-crop crashers that are not going to be exerted next turn. And Kiefer has access to 12 points of damage, and he can attack through 2 of those creatures.
So we see the Inspiring Statuary come down first, so it can power out the Sai. And now here's the 3rd spell for the turn in Sorcerer's Spyglass. So Casadei has gained a huge stack of life here. 6 life for the turn, up to 10.
He's got the Thopter.
And a Thopter thanks to the Sai there.
Right, so there's 2 crashers in play. Kiefer can attack for 9 here, or get through for 9 damage. If he draws any removal spell or burn effect, oh no, he's at 13. Okay, I thought he was at 10. All right, so this is a little bit safer. So yeah, he's still going to use the crasher to make the construct and the side not be able to block, get in for 9, put Casadei down to 4.
So the Thopter once again jumping in the way of one of those Scrap Heap Scroungers.
But if Casadei can untap here, that'll be huge.
I mean, he's not 50ing Kiefer anytime soon.
No, but he's just trying to stabilize here because he's got that Karn, which will just give him a steady stream of cards. And that
A Renegade map
cheap artifact is great.
It's fine. It is great. It's 1 mana, gain 1, play a 1/1. So this is a totally... Excuse me, Luca Casadei.
Oh.
Comes into play. Tap, my friend.
Okay, never mind. He's down to 1. Okay, so he was at 10.
Yeah, I think he was at 10, yeah.
Okay.
He gained 6, went up to
Now
10.
he's up to 2.
Renegade map comes into play. Tap there. Casadei not missing a beat.
So he can play Prophetic Prism and the Karn this turn as well, thanks to the Inspiring Statuary that's on the battlefield. So this will now put him up to 4 life with the Thopter. And then the next spell will put him up to 7 life.
Yeah, man, this is rough stuff here. It's Kiefer has been essentially this unrelenting source of stabilization from Casadei, who has done a great job in stringing together spells.
Right.
That paradoxical outcome was very important, not only because it drew cards, but also put extra cards in his hand so he
Right.
could play them out to the reservoir.
So he actually drew a Padim, so he has some interesting options here. So he's going with the Karn, making another Karn struct here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, they're just gigantic at this point. 3, 4, 5. I just couldn't count anymore.
It's a number
3,
beyond
4, 5,
like
6, 7, 8,
3.
9,
So
9
huge.
nines, 10 tens.
There are a lot of artifacts. There are a
Oh,
lot
and
of
he
artifacts.
still has the ability to play out the Padim here as well.
Oh,
So now he's
wow.
he's played. He's gained a ton of life, a truckload of life. He's got a bunch of, and now you know you're in trouble when the constructs start
Yep.
turning sideways and attacking.
So we're going to count up how many artifacts there are here. Supposed to say a whole bunch. Numbers larger than our brains
lots.
comprehend here. Lots.
Heaps.
Yep.
And those on-crop crashers are now exerted. So, yeah, I mean, I think Casadei is going to lock this one up.
Yeah, this has been very unfortunate for Kiefer, who rallied magnificently, I have to say, after a rough start, but wasn't able to come up with the goods. Got his opponent down to 1, down to 3 here and there, but ultimately that Aetherflux Reservoir has quietly gained Casadei about 20 life.
Yeah, he needed a key. There were a couple of moments where he just needed to draw a key removal spell, and he would have been able to win this game. But unfortunately, he just drew some lands and Scrap Heap Scroungers and wasn't able to get in for the final few points of damage. I mean, those on-crop crashers did a lot of work, but it just wasn't enough.
Cut to ribbons in the hand of young Quinn Kiefer here.
But that extra life that was gained by the Aetherflux Reservoir means that the cut to ribbons is just not going to get it done. And if you look, Casadei has a ton of blockers, and all of his artifacts have hexproof because of Padim. So he's got the cut to ribbons, which you can use on the Padim, but Casadei still has blockers for all 3 of those Scrap Heap Scroungers that are on the battlefield.
And Casadei is going to draw an extra card next turn as well, thanks to the Padim. So things going from bad to worse here for the American. It's not looking good for him as Casadei really dug his heels in, refused to say die. So draw from Padim because he controls the biggest artifact. Draw for turn as well. Looks like another Sai to me in addition to a mystery card.
Right, and he can use that Karn to make another gigantic creature. At this point, Quinn is looking to chump block, but he only has 1 blocker. He's got a Goblin Chain Whirler with an Ether Meltdown on it, but Casadei has 2 constructs that are both lethal in play. All he needs to do is just attack with both of these constructs, and it will be the game.
That is that. So a quick conference happening on the left-hand side of your screen there as Alpha and Void, the other play here, or the other draw for Casadei. Going to see Karn go downstairs by the look of things, make another construct.
Also, keep in mind that the Padim is on the battlefield, so Kiefer can't even have like unlicensed disintegration to save him. He needs he needs both the cards in his hand to be some combination of unlicensed disintegration plus a braid to be able to deal with both the Padim first and then the construct.
And it's just not going to happen here. Looks like Casadei just moments away from locking this one up. And that'll be a nice lead here for the team on the left.
And Casadei just playing very carefully here, just making sure, you know, just playing tight. You're in a situation where it's very difficult to lose, but if Kiefer does have the perfect 2 cards, he won't necessarily win right away. And if Kiefer somehow survives, he does have 15 points of power on the battlefield with 2 untapped on-crop crashers. So just making sure.
Well, not enough here for young Quinn Kiefer, who goes down in very convincing fashion at the end of things from Luca Casadei. A couple of stumbles, couple of fumbles there for Casadei, but ultimately Kiefer's draw not able to contest this Reservoir combo deck, which I tell you what, I'm very happy to see at the top tables of the Pro Tour. It's it's a weird one. We don't often see
super
decks
close.
like
He got
this.
down to 1 life.
Yeah.
It was very, very tight game.
We don't often see, you know, actual combo decks in Standard very often, so it's very, very cool to see a weird little brewski like this getting it done at the highest level. Let's move over now to Modern. We have Willie Adel on 5-color humans. Obviously couldn't talk himself into playing Jund here. And it looks like this is a much, much better start from him, not only with the Thalia's Lieutenant, but now another effective Thalia's Lieutenant, Phantasmal Image. We talked about the fact that Mardu Pyromancer are highly favored in this matchup, but right now definitely on the back foot.
Yeah, if we do another deck tech with Willie, I'm sure he'll find a way to compare this humans deck to Jund in some way, shape, or form. Militia Bugler is Blood Red Elf.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a far different hand. It's a far different situation. Willie Edel did have the disruption. Jan Moritz Merkel does have an Anger of the Gods, but it's not going to be big enough to deal with that 4/4 Thalia's Lieutenant. But he can survive this turn, as he did flashback Lingering Souls.
So rough stuff here for Merkel after Adel going down in game 1. As you would expect, I have to say that the Mardu Pyromancer deck does have the edge in this matchup. And let's have a talk about Adel's list here. The 5-color humans list has gone under a recent sort of metamorphosis, shaving down on all those flex slots, the Restoration Angel, the Kessick Malcontents, a new piece of technology from M19 joining us.
Yeah, you got the Militia Bugler. Now, a lot of times people weren't even necessarily super happy with those cards. Kessick Malcontent, Restoration Angel. It's more like, oh, I've run out of awesome humans to play. I guess I'll just jam some of these in my deck, and hopefully they do some stuff. And, you know, on raid, they're fine. But this Militia Bugler just kind of acting as a way to just kind of give your deck a lot more redundancy, right? You have a lot of those 2-mana humans that are just incredibly powerful. You get to use this as a way to kind of search up a lot of different ways to kind of disrupt your opponent. And that's what makes this deck so powerful. It's capable of getting these really fast, aggressive starts with Thalia's Lieutenant, Champion of the Parish, and Mantis Rider. At the same time, all the other 2-drops are really, really good, strong, disruptive creatures as well.
And this is one of the key elements of this deck as we see Champion of the Parish into the battlefield. One of the key elements of this deck, Paul, is the fact that all of the creatures that it plays have spell-like effects. There's Thorn of Amethyst with the Guardian of Thraben. There is a +1/+1 counter Lord effect with Thalia's Lieutenant. There's a Duress effect with Kaisal Freebooter. All of these creatures have disruptive or synergistic elements that essentially mean this deck is greater than the sum of its parts.
Right. Now, Yanmort's Merkel is going to be able to have a good turn here. If he can actually find a red source, he can play Anger of the Gods and then play Lightning Bolt on the 5/5 Thalia's Lieutenant, and then we're going to have an empty board.
So Merkel, a lonely 3 lands on the battlefield here for him. And he does need to find an answer to this quite imposing board presence that Adel has built up.
So he's got this Anger of the Gods in hand, which I think he has to cast this turn. But he, again, he won't be able to deal with that 5/5 Thalia's Lieutenant, so he needs to just basically hope to draw something like a Fatal Push or a Lingering Souls to be able to kind of stem the bleeding here from the Thalia's Lieutenant. Now, Willy Edel, on the other hand, gets an attack here, can put Merkel down to 3, but he's also got that Horizon Canopy available. So now if he draws something like a Mantis Rider within his top 2 cards,
that's it.
He can just win the game here.
That's it. Yep. Off the top, it's a Phantasmal Image. That's another nice one here.
That's 2 extra points of damage.
Yep. And another card off the top. I think that was a Champion of the Parish here.
So that's lethal, right? Phantasmal Image copying Thalia's Lieutenant will put 2 counters on the current Thalia's Lieutenant. Then you play if you play Champion of the Parish, that's an additional point of damage. That's 8.
That's 8 counters. Oh, sorry, 7 counters total. Yeah, 3 counters being put on top of it. So we'll see if Adel has the cards that he needs. I didn't get a great look at it. It did look like a champion. I'm very ready to be wrong about that. However, we'll get that sneak peek at what's going on in Adel's hand. You can see, well supported by his teammates.
Is he like
behind him
thinking, is there a Slaughter Pact? Does he have a Slaughter Pact in his deck? There's always a chance.
So Thalia's Lieutenant gonna juice up that other Thalia. Okay, obviously wasn't a champion.
Okay.
And gets across for 7 now. Merkel down to 1 off the top. He needs something. It's a mountain, so double bolt in hand for Merkel already, but that is not enough to take down this 7/7.
Right.
Looking through his graveyard, has he got a Faithless Looting? He does.
He does have a Faithless Looting. Now, if he finds somehow a Faithless Looting leaves a black up and has Fatal Push for the 7/7 Thalia's Lieutenant, he's still facing down a lethal 1/1 Thalia's Lieutenant that's on the battlefield. So, doesn't quite have enough.
So let's see, for 4 mana here, what's this going to be? Oh, double Lingering Souls in the bin? Okay, quietly hiding them away from us. All right, well, that buys him quite a fair bit of time, and this is the power of Lingering Souls. It's just a fantastic card any way you slice it. Great if you want to get busy in the air and put some pressure on, but wow, it shines when you're behind.
That was great. This buys Yanmort's Merkel a good amount of time. He does have those Faithless Lootings in his graveyard, and this now gives him the ability to try to find some Fatal Push. If he just finds a Fatal Push for that the gigantic Thalia's Lieutenant, he might be able to come back here.
So it's actually a Cavern of Souls that Willie Adel drew there. I tell you what, I bet he wishes he had a Keswick Malcontents right now.
Well, to be fair, a Militia Bugler would also be quite nice here.
So.
Wow, that is just a gigantic Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yep, that is one of the biggest I've ever seen. A 9/9 Lieutenant here, as we have triple Lieutenants on the battlefield.
So Yanmort's Merkel does have the ability to triple block the Thalia's Lieutenant to get it off the board, but it looks like he's just going to go for the chump here instead.
He's got a Lightning Bolt that he can deploy.
Right, he's got 2 Lightning Bolts. So he can actually deal with both of the... he can deal with the Phantasmal Image and the 3/3.
Bedlam Reveler off the top here.
Oh, that is nice.
That's insane here.
So he's going to go Bolt, kill both of the smaller creatures.
And then just reload with a 3/4.
Right.
Merkel is turning this around.
And he's at 1 life. But 1 is not 0.
No, it is not. And now the second bolt going after the image.
That was a great draw step.
And Adel needs these to just be absolute blank pieces of cardboard if he wants to stay in it. They're not. A swamp, another Bedlam Reveler by the look of things.
Yeah, and he's got a couple of blockers there with the Lingering Souls as well.
And an Inquisition of Kozilek.
And might as well just play out your hand
Yeah.
as you do have that extra Bedlam Reveler in hand.
It's an Anger of the Gods, excuse me.
Oh, it's not a Bedlam Reveler.
No, it's an Anger of the Gods.
Okay. Not as exciting.
Not as exciting. Not as exciting. Hit the brakes on that old hype train for just 1 second.
Might have been interested in keeping that hand disruption spell in hand for the Faithless Looting then.
Yeah. Flashback Faithless Looting, discard the useless Inquisition.
Right.
So back to Merkel now. Adel unable to find
that's
the
a
action he
Kolaghan's
needs.
command. Now, since we are kind of shifting over to this match that was being played, unclear what the cards in Merkel's graveyard is currently.
Yeah.
If
But
he
Anger-
has something like, if he just happens to have a Bedlam Reveler, of course that would be fantastic.
Anger of the Gods, Kolaghan's command in hand
Oh,
for him here.
that's
but
a Mantis Rider.
Off the top's going to put in some pressure in the air. And that's going to force the issue now. And all of a sudden, this Bedlam Reveler...
but this isn't going to be bad. Jan Morris Merkel can now use a Kolaghan's command to deal 2 damage to Mantis Rider and get back Bedlam Reveler. This is big. He can now use that Bedlam Reveler to try to find a fatal push for the Stali's Lieutenant.
So able to...
Still not over.
Able to find a way forward there, despite the fact that Adel did rip a real nice one off the top. And let's see what the next move from the Mardu Pyromancer player is. You would think that at least one step of the plan
He's asking,
is...
should I play this land? Because does he have any... If he has a life gain effect, sure, play the land. But maybe he'd be interested in just playing a land that he draws off this Bedlam Reveler instead.
I don't think you... I mean, the Bloodstained Mire does actual nothing.
Right.
At 1 life, it does actual nothing. So
All right.
discard, draw
To
1,
find
2,
some
3.
cards,
They've
yeah.
got to be something good.
A lot of good cards he can draw, though.
Faithless Looting, another Bloodstained Mire, mismatched. I will point that out. And a Liliana, the Last Hope.
Yeah, which he can use to get back that Bedlam Reveler if he does choose to chump block with it here.
But none of these cards is what he was looking for in facing down this massive 10-10 Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yeah, I think Faithless Looting is the play here. He does have some Dreadbores in his deck. He does have, of course, those Fatal Pushes that he really needs to find. And I'm not sure Liliana quite gets it done. So yeah, it looks like he is firing off this Faithless Looting. Does he find a Fatal Push?
Constrain
He could
his
also
mana a
find
fair bit
something
here.
like Lingering Souls to put in Graveyard to find additional blockers.
Inquisition of Kozilek was one of the cards he found. And it looks like another Kolaghan's command there.
Okay, so just staying alive. He has so many removal spells in his deck to try to deal with this Stali's Lieutenant, but he's unable to find them.
But this is what the deck does. It grinds, Paul. It grinds and grinds.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you can just top out at 5 lands, and everything else, you can just cycle away with those Faithless Lootings that you have in your deck.
So we see Merkel bin another
Merkel has a
useless
lot of great
Bloodstained
draws
Mire.
here.
Let's find out what he can get off the top. Was that a land? Oh, no. 10-10 gets across. Once again, the chump block for Merkel. He can rebuy that Bedlam Reveler one final time with a...
So many Revelers.
He's got a Lightning Bolt off the top now.
And a Kolaghan's Command, which is just not enough. So we're going to see a Liliana here getting back Bedlam Reveler. And we're going to see 3 more new cards being played from Jan Moritz Merkel.
So
or, being put into his hand, rather.
2 off the top.
That was a good self-mill, Land
Yep.
and Thoughtseize.
And the
So
Thoughtseize, both useless in this case. Discard my hand, draw 3 more.
if he finds like Swamp Fatal Push, that would be ideal.
Dreadbore.
Ooh, there is a Dreadbore.
Dreadbore is a hard answer to the Thalia's Lieutenant. Unable to play it this turn, of course, is Merkel. Let's see if Adel can find a way to push through that damage. He cannot.
All right.
That is the 3rd time the Bedlam Reveler has died to the Thalia's Lieutenant.
That
He's just
pesky
like,
Reveler.
let me rest. I have done my job. My friend, please stop bringing me back from the dead. Off the top now for Merkel. It's a fatal push
and a
as
fatal
well.
push.
So
All
Mardu
right.
Pyromancer turning the corner on this game after having to dig his fingers into the edge of the cliff face for quite a number of turns. Away goes the Lieutenant. And now Merkel can continue to press forward here.
Now, Willie can still draw a Mantis Rider here for the win, as that Fatal Push will not be able to get that Mantis Rider. And since Merkel is sitting at 1 life, he can't even find a fetch land to keep it up for the Fatal Push.
To enable Revolt.
So close.
Oh, wow, a game of millimeters here. This is just about as tense as it gets, and we're only in round 2 of Pro Tour 25th anniversary. And look at Adel with the
Willie's
smile
like, come
playing
on,
around his
just
face.
something.
Just please, just let me have it. I'm fighting so hard. 2 cards off the top. Here's Faithless Looting, secretly one of the best cards in Modern. Nahiri, the Harbinger, is not what he's looking for.
I think he might. I mean, it's possible that he might want to just fire off the Bedlam Reveler again.
Just draw discard. Here's another Bedlam Reveler. Discard the Fatal Push.
Because he is going to lose to Mantis Rider anyway.
Yeah, he can't beat a Mantis Rider at this stage.
So it's important that he remembers to tick up that Liliana here.
Yep.
Okay.
Up she goes. Presumably not targeting
Mantis
anything.
Rider?
Off the top. Willie Adel, one time. He's slow rolling it as if it is. 3 cards.
And
Two
Lawrence
lands.
Merkel just needs to untap here because I
Mystery
think he's
card.
holding. Let's take a look at the update here. He's holding a Lightning Bolt now, so he now has the mana. He has Lightning Bolt for top deck Mantis Rider. So now I think Lawrence Merkel can actually even start applying pressure and attacking because the only haste creature in the humans deck is Mantis Rider.
So, Collective Brutality also in hand. One of the very few ways that Merkel has to gain a few precious life points here. And we may see him do that, just in case he draws another fetch land, I suppose.
And this is I mean, he's only found the one Bedlam Reveler, right? I think he's just been recurring the same Bedlam Reveler over and over again.
There might be a second one,
I don't
but
know.
yeah, certainly there was
At this
one
point,
that
there might be another one.
There was one that did a lot of work, yeah. So we're going to see an escalated Collective Brutality here. This card, a fantastically flexible option in the modern format. Now, Edel holding on to both a Noble Hierarch and a Thalia's Lieutenant. Those cards not doing enough on this board for him.
Yeah, given that the Liliana's on the board, you're basically just playing a creature to get it removed, so...
So Merkel now, he's gone up to 3 and then down to 2 thanks to the Marsh Flats activation. He does want another land. I saw that he went through his graveyard just now to check if he even had a basic left in his deck. Paul, look at his deck, dude. It is
He's going to need to close out the game.
He's got like 10 cards left in his library.
That's what happens when you cast Bedlam Reveler like 4 times.
Can't even shuffle properly because his deck is so thinned out thanks to all of those Faithless Lootings and Bedlam Revelers here.
So he now has perfect information. We do have multiple prowess triggers from the Bedlam Reveler here.
2 cards off the top for Merkel.
Although, interesting that he went for the looting there, given that he already had the Lightning Bolt in hand, which he probably wants to keep.
He's kept the bolt, and across comes the Bedlam Reveler for 500,000 damage. Of course, Adel on 21. He's not too worried about the Reveler becoming a lethal threat just yet. But Merkel does need something.
Willie needs to go back-to-back Mantis Rider here, I believe. Oh, what is it?
The Yam Wing Chun slow roll, Paul. What has he found? Basic Plains, Noble Hierarch, Thalia's Lieutenant, and a card that the Hall of Famer is keeping very close to the chest here. Rearranges those lands. Bit of gardening for Adel here.
And I think Merkel's turned this around.
So, Noble Hierarch to kick things off, get the party started. Number 2, it's going to be Thalia's Lieutenant. Or something else, perhaps. Let's see what he's up to here. Here is the Lieutenant. So that's going to put that Hierarch out of Liliana range. And then a Kite Sail freebooter as well is going to force the issue.
So
Merkel, and use it or lose it when it comes to this bolt.
And I like the way Willie sequenced his plays here.
Yeah.
So now, none of those creatures will die to a Liliana activation.
So really good stuff from him because both the Lieutenant and the Hierarch now with 2 toughness, meaning that Liliana, the Last Hope, can't tussle with him. And he's got life points to play with, right? He's on 14. He only needs to push through 2 points of damage. Merkel has to have something special here. This game has been going back and forth like you wouldn't believe, my friends. Merkel refusing to say die, sponsored by the BGs. He is staying alive. A Bedlam Reveler off the top again here.
Yeah, so we activated that Liliana. We have another Bedlam Reveler activation. He's debating whether or not he should play this Marsh Flats. Given that he's at 2 life, he does have that life points to spare. But it's not even clear that he can fetch for a land
he may not even have any lands.
He might be looking through his graveyard just to make sure.
He's going to go through his graveyard to check if he's got any lands left. He may not have anything to fetch for. I mean, what's a rough estimate of how many cards he's got left in his library? Realistically, like 15?
Something like that.
Like 15 is what I'm saying. Maybe 15 to 20 cards here. So he is going to fetch.
So
with
he
the
has a
Marsh
land to fetch here, it looks like.
There's a Blood Crypt and a Godless Shrine.
So he's doing this because he has so few cards left in his deck. He is choosing to do this to kind of thin out his deck and just increase the chances that he can find action spells with the Bedlam Reveler that he casts.
So Willie, very quickly counting out there. It did look to be around 13, 15 cards maybe. He's going to draw 3 more. Are we going to see a Mardu deck itself against 5-color humans?
I don't think so, but Yanmor's Merkel does not find an instant speed removal spell. So Willie does have outs here. He can draw a Mantis Rider off the top here.
He's just been begging for it for so long. He needs that Mantis Rider. Here's another Liliana. Going to sacrifice a creature. See what Adel wants to wants to bin here.
I imagine the Noble Hierarch will be the one to go here.
Yes, indeed. Away it goes. Thank you for your service.
The Liliana
Willie
gets
Adel.
to tick up.
I don't know that he...
Oh, no, he ticked down. He ticked down both of them. So the question now is, does he want to attack with Bedlam Reveler? Did Willie Edel keep in something like a Reflector Mage, right? Because if he attacks with this Bedlam... Look, he's deciding. He's like, do you have Reflector Mage still in your deck?
He's just flipping the card around, but he decides, no, got to get those points of damage in. There's been a prowess trigger. Adel takes 4 down to 10 off the top.
Now
Willie
another
Adel,
Thalia's Lieutenant will force a chump block, because this Thalia's Lieutenant will be a 4/4 and the Bedlam Reveler is a 3/4. So Willie does have a couple of decent draw steps here. Does he find it?
I think he found an Ancient Ziggurat.
I don't think so.
Oh, no. And just cannot catch a break here, the Brazilian. His opponent on 1 again. Merkel has spent half
another
this
Reveler.
game on 1 life.
That is another Reveler.
Another Reveler?
He can tick up the Liliana here if he wants.
He can't keep drawing cards. He's going to deck himself.
Well,
out.
I mean, he's going to be able to end the game very quickly. If he finds a removal, if he finds 2 spells to cast here and one of them is a removal spell for the Thalia's Lieutenants, he can get in for 10 points of damage this turn.
He's got 5 points. He's got 5 cards left in his library.
Oh, and that was the perfect card. Collective Brutality.
Yeah.
-2/-2 on the Liliana. Drain you for 2. Put you down to 8, and then he has 2 4 or 5 Bedlam Revelers, which will be just enough.
Collective Brutality off the top, removing that Thalia's Lieutenant, pumping up those Bedlam Revelers, and we've seen the power of Mardu Pyromancer. It just does not die. You can stop this cockroach with your boot as many times as you want, and it will just scuttle under the fridge and keep coming back. Across comes this 8-power attack. Willy Adel, 2 lands in hand, extends the hand, and the win goes to Kai Budde, Yanmor's Merkel, and Luca Casadei after some incredible magic across all 3 formats. Wow, Paul Cheon, what a treat it's been to explore these 3 formats here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary.
What a close game. I mean, Willie Edel had multiple draw steps to try to chain something together. He had cards like Mantis Rider, cards like a Militia Bugler to kind of be able to try to chain multiple threats and put them all to the battlefield, but it just, not enough action spells, and Yanmor's Merkel stabilizing at 1 life. He was at 1 for like 7 turns.
For like 8 turns, yeah. It was unbelievable the way. But that's what the Mardu Pyromancer deck does, right? It just grinds, it plays its removal, it sticks whatever threats it can, and just cleans up if and when it gets the chance.
Yeah, it never runs out of gas, right? With the combination of those Faithless Lootings and the Bedlam Revelers and multiple ways to recur those Bedlam Revelers means that if you just kind of get into a grindy late game situation with the Mardu deck, you're just going to lose.
The other final point I want to make about this this deck, Paul, is it is fantastic against a wide open modern field, because it's what we call a 51% deck. It doesn't have glaring weaknesses. It's a very difficult deck to completely overrun. I'm expecting big things from Mardu Pyromancer this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, this, when there was kind of the unbanning of Bloodbraid Elf, everybody thought, all right, well, Jund is clearly the mid-range deck to play in Modern, and it looks like Mardu Pyromancer is now kind of sitting as the king of the hill for that type of strategy.
Absolutely. We're going to see more of that, I'm sure, throughout the weekend. But right now, my friends, we're going to wrap things up for round number 2 down here on the floor. Thanks for joining us. We've got to go to a break, but on the other side of this, we'll be back at the desk with Rich and Marie. We'll see you then.
Looking for a place to hang out and play Magic? Head to your local game store this and every Friday to play Friday Night Magic events. Get more info at magic.wizards.com/FNM.
So my favorite card in Magic for probably over 20 years has been Swords to Plowshares. It kind of has a lot of meaning to me. I've top-8'd multiple Grand Prix with the Death and Taxes deck, where that's the removal spell, and it's just always in my white decks in any format that I can play it. And it has a lot of meaning to it because it's also the name of my blog, and it's like my faith is based on a prophecy that it is named after, and so that's kind of the card that I feel is my favorite Magic card.
I guess my favorite card is probably like Meloku, the Cloud Mirror. It's when I started building new decks for myself. I I could just throw Mellow Queen every single deck. Like, let's build black-white, splash Mellow Queen, whatever. I like the fact that he just like gave you so many options, because you have to decide exactly how many tokens you would need in the game, and you could easily lose or win because you made one too many tokens or one too less. So I really love the challenge the card gave to me, and it's also very powerful.
You have a little, I don't even know what it is. What is a boggle? It's a slippery little swamp thing. And you put pants on it. You put auras and enchantments, and it gets bigger, and it has hexproof, so they can't touch it. And it just swings for the fences with lifelink, vigilance, reach, trample. It's a beautiful thing when you see a little swamp creature get that big and go the distance.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the news desk. Rich, Maria and Brian David Marshall, the Pro Tour historian. Let's talk some results. Maria, our first round feature matchup, how did they subsequently do in round two?
All right, so the team of Yasaoka, Kakume, and Watanabe are currently 2-0, so undefeated in the tournament. We saw them win over there. They won over in the big area this past round. And they, of course, in round one played Cuneo, Finkel, and Rietzel and beat them. But this last round, round number 2, they managed to win, so that team is currently at 1-1.
Right, so that's a bit of good news for Ultimate Guard there, but Duke, Jensen and Turtenwald lost this round, so they're at 1-1 as well. Brian, talk us through another famous team that got a ton of fans around the world, Channel Fireball.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that I've been watching a little bit. Josh Utter-Layton, Ben Stark, and Martin Yuza, watching Josh Utter-Layton play Legacy, and I can tell you that they're 2-0. Through 2 rounds here, but the other half of their team, which is, you know, the Hall of Famers, Paulo Vitor Damaderosa, Luis Scott Vargas, and Mike Sigris, the Hall of Fame hopeful on the team, they're 0-2 to start the tournament. So they've got a very, very steep road ahead of them if they want to contribute mightily to Team Series finish.
Okay, similar story with Team Genesis. Now, Lucas Blahon, Martin Muller, and Corey Baumeister, who BDM talked with earlier in the day, they're up to 2-0. But the flip side of that, their other half, Brian Brown doing in the legacy seat. Seth Manfield is playing modern. Brad Nelson, what a surprise, is playing standard, one of the best standard players of all time. But they're at 0-2. So one thing that we're really starting to see here is that it is so hard to gain ground because both your halves have to advance to feel like you're making progress in the tournament. All these 1-1-1-1, 2-0-0-2, 0-2-2-0, and they're just, it's really hard for both your teams to win both matches.
Well, you'll happily take one of your teams spiking the PT, getting into that top 4, putting up a ton of points, right? A lot of these teams have gotten deep into the standings of the Team Series with just one big event from an individual, so.
Yeah, it is actually not about consistency. It is about that giant...
Unless it's Ultimate Guard, in which case they've just been ridiculously consistent.
But they break every rule because they're just so outstanding.
They're so good, and they don't have a ton of finishes. They don't have a win this season, you know what I mean? Like, they've just been top 25s and top 64s and just all these kind of like adding up their point totals.
But good enough to put them in first place.
Overwhelmingly in first place, almost insurmountable lead, it feels like.
Yeah, so look, we've got a little bit of time before the next round. We believe there's one match left out on the floor. French team of Aurillac, Violette, and Laguerre are still playing. So why don't we talk some more, Maria, about the top teams in the Team Series?
All right, so Ultimate Guard. William Huey Jensen is somebody we had a chance to talk to. They're in first place. Are they essentially a lock
I mean,
here?
there's obviously you could have two teams in the standings just spike their way into the top 4. And, obviously a lot of stuff could still happen, but it's such a commanding lead. They're such consistent performers on the Pro Tour. It feels like a lock.
All right, well, why don't we hear from William Jensen?
All right, I'm here with the champ, William Huey Jensen from the Ultimate Guard Pro Team. Huey, how's testing been going, man?
It's been going for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, have you guys put in extra effort given the increased prize pool here
for
this Pro
like
Tour?
Worlds level.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I remember the last time you put in that much testing time.
Yeah. We spent, wow, I think it's been over 4, close to 5 weeks now of I played a lot of Magic in the past 5 weeks.
Wow. Preparedness level, how are you feeling?
Very prepared. I think I know every format.
Which one are you playing again? You're on
I'm
Modern?
playing Modern this time.
And that means it reads on Legacy?
Reads on Legacy and owns on Standard.
Okay, and how much crossover did you guys do? Because a lot of the players we've talked to kind of said, look, I stayed in my lane.
Yeah.
I was a Modern player, I tested Modern. Is that
That's
how you did
how
it?
we did this.
That is not how you did
it. I didn't play much Standard. I played a little bit. It was pretty clear that Owen was going to play Standard, but Reed and I played hours and hours and hours each of both Modern and Legacy.
Interesting.
I mean, countless hours. Yeah, like, I guess you could probably count them. I don't know the number, but,
but I can't count
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. But, and you feel that was a better approach rather than having each of you kind of just stick to your own little silo?
Well, we decided we just wanted to put in max time, max effort, and give ourselves the best chance to win. And to do that, we thought we should at least be able to give some input on other formats, so...
I have to ask, when you put in that much effort, do you feel when you come into the tournament that you're like riding in on fumes, like you're kind of at the last leg of a long race and you're like, okay, just got to get to the finish line? Or are you like, let's get in there? I mean, all this work's finally about to pay off.
Yeah. So I would only put in that much effort when I really cared about the tournament. Like, I'm not going to play 5 weeks and then head to a Grand Prix, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This, like Worlds is one example. This is a team Pro Tour. This might be the last team Pro Tour I ever play. Ooh. Might be the only one I ever play with Owen and Reed. You know, we've done a pretty good job at the Grand Prix level. And I know the three of us would like to sort of cement ourselves in the pantheon of three-man teams up there or whatever.
The pantheon of the pantheon?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm ready to play. That's how I feel.
You look ready, buddy.
Yeah,
I think you're good to go.
I'm ready to play.
All right. Well, we got to know. We got to keep an eye, of course, always on the Peach Garden Oath, his teammates, and William Huey Jensen. Good luck, guys.
Thanks.
All right, there is a look at Team Ultimate Guard. In second place is Hararuya Latin, who has made an absolutely astonishing run this season. And we had a chance to talk to Luis Salvato, who's had a large part in helping them get there.
Hello, I'm here the day before Pro Tour 25th anniversary kicks off, and I have a Pro Tour champion with me, Luis Salvato. Welcome. For this event, it's not just you playing on your own. You're going to have to rely on 2 people to work with you if you are looking to win this event.
Yes.
Who have you got on your side?
Yeah, on my side there will be Sebastian Pozzo and Lucas Esper-Bertul.
It's a powerhouse team. You've got a lot of talent on that team and
Yes.
a lot of experience even in the top 8 of Pro Tours. Now, there are 3 different formats at this Pro Tour. There's no
Yes.
limited to worry about, but we've got Standard, we've got Modern, we've got Legacy. Now, you've won a Pro Tour in Modern.
Yes.
Does that mean that you're immediately just snap that one up and don't let anyone else get hold of it?
It wasn't so fast, the decision, but I end up playing Modern since I like the format and I enjoy playing, so I like.
And then between Esper and Pozzo, which way did they fall on this?
Pozzo is playing Standard. He is really good playing Standard, and Lucas is playing Legacy, and he has experience. He plays since a lot of years, so.
Yeah, I think that especially in the Legacy, because it's a format that doesn't normally change too much,
Yes.
that experience is useful, though
Well, until now.
there's been a big change. Yeah,
Yes.
how has that changed your testing?
Well, it changed a lot because Lucas was testing all the decks, not only play the Dead Right Shaman decks, also against Dead Right Shaman, so it changed a lot. So it's a new scenario and we are prepared to fight.
Well, that's what we want to hear. We want to make sure that you guys are ready and raring to go. In terms of what's at stake for you guys, obviously we're getting late in the season now. People are starting to eye up those pro points. They're starting to eye up potential team series slots as well. How are you guys doing as we go into this Pro Tour?
Well, at this moment we are in 2nd place for the team series. So if nothing changes, if we go to the 1st place, we will play the finals. So we are pretty excited about that. But we know it's hard because there's a lot of good teams beside us. So we need to make a good tournament to keep it in the 2nd or 1st place.
Absolutely, but you've put yourself in pretty much as ideal a position as you possibly could be, and by the sound of it, testing's gone all right too. It doesn't hurt to have a Modern Pro Tour champion in your corner when you're playing a format with Modern in there. Best of luck to you and to all of your team, of course, here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thanks, Tim, and thanks to Luis Salvador, all the players who come in. We've got so many interviews lined up for you over the course of this $1 Million Magic weekend here. But our players are gearing up in the feature match here. We're going to take a very short break, and then we'll be back heading towards round 3 action. Don't go anywhere. one of the great things about being here at the news desk so close to the feature match area and the tables is that we have all the field wandering past and checking in with little bits of stories. Talk with Guillaume Matignon, who I mentioned to you. His team are 2-0 right now, and that's Antoine Ruel, Guillaume Wafatapa and Matignon. Now remember, this is not a unified constructed format where you're only allowed 4 copies of a particular card spread across 3 decks. You can play them everywhere you want. All 3 players, he said proudly, are playing Teferi. So
I love it.
In Legacy and Modern and Standard, Teferi all the way in the kind of, well, I dare say they're not all mono blue, but certainly a team with a lot of blue pedigree.
Ununified team trios.
Ununified team trios.
Which is how a
indeed.
lot of teams play tested for this format.
Right, yeah, indeed. All right, so we've got our feature match area behind us gearing up. So what are we looking at, Maria, for the matchup?
Okay, so first thing we're going to have is Ben Friedman versus, help me out here, Gaudanis
Vidigiris.
Vidigiris. Okay, there we go. We've got blue-black Death Shadow versus Eldrazi Stompy. And we learned a little bit about Death Shadow and Legacy with Simon Gertzen earlier today. So I know you're looking forward to seeing this deck in action.
Absolutely. This is a card that, has dominated Modern, has the right kind of casting cost for the Legacy format. It is cheap. It costs just a single black to cast. But Swords to Plowshares presents an awfully interesting 2-for-1 opportunity in Legacy. Kill your Death Shadow, you gain some life. Oh, by the way, your other Death Shadow dies in the process. Can be a little scary. It's really interesting to see how Legacy has sort of evolved and shifted and maybe opened up the door for this Modern powerhouse to now become a Legacy powerhouse.
And it's really cool, too, to see a deck that we all know from Modern be played in a completely different format, maybe the powered-up version of it.
More Watery Graves than Underground Seas in those decks, right?
Yeah.
And also, just to talk about Death Shadow itself for a moment, what an incredibly strange and glorious card that the whole point of your game plan is to not be at 20 life, or 18, or 15, or 12, ideally about 4. Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So 4 to 7
Four is out of bolt range. That's nice.
Yeah, there we are. That's what we aim to please. All right, what's the middle table? This is Modern, of course.
I would say Modern, we have Andrei Strosky on Humans versus Stanislav Sivka on Bant Spirits, which I think is very interesting because Spirits is a deck that's kind of, flown under the radar. It's like if you want to play a creatures deck, maybe you should just play Humans. So it'll be an interesting matchup here. And we've got Supreme Phantom from M19, 4 copies of that, which could potentially be in that deck back there. I don't know, but I've seen lists online.
Provides 2 sets of Lords for the Spirits deck in Modern. And remember, Stanislav Sivka is someone who has won a Pro Tour playing Modern back at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica in 2012.
Sivka also has a busy day ahead of him because in addition to the 7 rounds of the Pro Tour he plays, he'll be in the quarterfinals of the Silver Showcase. We'll be showing all of those matches live when the Pro Tour is done.
Where he'll be going up against blue-white control.
Right, yeah, because you started to have a little look at decks, but we'll get to that later on. But talking of more decks, let's go into Standard. What's the 3rd seat, Maria?
All right, Oliver Tew is on Esper Control, and he'll be playing Zvi Moshowitz on Steel Leaf Stompy.
Wait. The Zvi Moshowitz?
The Zvi, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
I talked to Zvi before the tournament. He was so excited to be playing on the Pro Tour again. Has obviously could always play. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the all-time greats, and just really excited to play in a Pro Tour where he just gets to play constructed for every single round. Didn't have to worry about splitting his focus, and really loves the deck he's playing.
3 players, 3 decks, 3 formats. Round 3.